Richard Dawkins and Deepak Chopra are having themselves a little social media feud. So Raw Story had an article yesterday about how Dawkins jabbed Chopra at a recent event. In fact, we have a clip of it here. Take a look.
The Pew Forum published a new study of 35,000 adult Americans, revealing that the nuns, once again, are the fastest growing religious cohort in America. That is the religiously unaffiliated, the nuns, so-called N-O-N-E-S. Yeah, sorry, for those of you not used to that jargon. So it went from about 7% to about 23% in the last 20 years, and then up to 34% of all Americans who are millennials, that is, born after 1981. So if you take that there's 245 million adult Americans, that's 56 million religiously unaffiliated adults of all ages. That's more than Protestants or Catholics. Are we winning?
We're going to have to, well, that's very good news, but we're going to have to get used to that word nuns more and more. And in order to forestall misunderstanding, could we change it to knowns or something like that?
Well, unchurched is what sociologists call it. That's fine.
One of the problems is that the so-called nuns often give up religion for something even worse.
Or laterally crazy.
I mean, they take up Deepak Chopra or something like that.
Yes.
That was funny. As he would say, that's rather cheeky. So he's saying Deepak Chopra is actually worse than organized religion. And Deepak saw this. Raw Story ran the article. Somehow Deepak Chopra saw the article, and he responded on Twitter and said, "Is Richard Dawkins intellectually challenged? Dishonest?" He sent some other tweets too, where he's like, #atheism, haha, or something like that. I don't know. Deepak's a really weird dude. Like, one time, Lawrence Krauss and Richard Dawkins had a picture together, and Deepak started randomly tweeting at them stuff about, like, energy and the quantum fields and quantum. It's like, all right, dude, fall back a little bit. They're not up your ass, but you're up their ass. So, who's right in this feud between the two? Well, first, let's get the obvious out there. No, Deepak. You know, and everybody else knows, Richard Dawkins, if you agree or disagree with him, irrelevant. You know he's not intellectually challenged or dishonest. In fact, all the, the attacks that a lot of people have against new atheists, Richard Dawkins is definitely the one who's above any criticisms of new atheists, because sometimes people say, oh, a lot of new atheists are too conservative, this and that, yada, yada. I don't necessarily agree with that, but people make that argument. Richard Dawkins is like probably the most liberal and the most open-minded and, just the most left-wing new atheist character. So he's above all the other criticisms, and he's certainly not. No honest person can say that he is dishonest or that he's intellectually challenged. Now, there is a question, was he joking there? Maybe he was joking, maybe he was half serious, whatever. It was just a line. Clearly it got some laughs there. But Deepak is wrong in calling, basically trying to do an ad hominem attack against Dawkins. But also, look, I don't know if Dawkins was serious there, but if he is serious, I don't agree with that. I don't think Deepak Chopra is worse than organized religion. Deepak Chopra has not called for the death of infidels, and he's not called for slavery, like is in the Bible, for example. I mean, there's a trillion things that are worse in organized religion, compared to Deepak Chopra. And Deepak, as far as I know, doesn't have a book where he claims it's inerrant, and it's just pure dogmatism. He makes shit up, and he's a weird dude, and he pretends to know shit he doesn't know, talking about quantum energy fields, yada yada. But he's not as bad. I would take the weirdo, new age, spiritual people over, like, a religious fundamentalist all day long. All day long. So I actually disagree with Richard in that respect, but I think he was probably partly joking. And I will grant him that in one small area he's right, in that Deepak may be worse than religious fundamentalists, and that he actually knows better. You know what I mean? Like, he's smart enough to know that he's full of shit. So, like, because you should be better than what you're doing. Whereas, some religious fundamentalists might have an IQ of 62, so you almost feel bad for them, and you're not, like, judging them in a way. So, interesting little feud here. You guys tell me what you think.